Hello, welcome to Season 11 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. This season, in each episode, we will not both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about it later. We have 10 previous seasons of doing exactly that, and it's time for something new. This season, each episode will focus on a larger horror topic, trend, or maybe even rumor. We'll speculate about upcoming movies, debate genre definitions, and do our best to apply the perspective of two people who have watched way too many horror movies to different types of horror media. Thanks for coming along for the ride. So I hate to relitigate the past. And I know we've talked about this before. But I got some emotional baggage around The Walking Dead.
Is that so?
And being excluded from a band activity.
I'm pretty sure you were on a date when that happened.
I'm just saying I never got invited again.
Oh, we never did it. Oh, did we do it again? We did.
You guys watched that show together for years. It was always your special thing, and I was just the outsider.
Well, yeah.
But I've given you a hard time about that for years.
Yeah.
And confession time. Mm-hmm. At one point early on, I actually did try to start the series when it was on Netflix.
We've talked about this.
Couldn't get into it.
Yeah. So. That's why I think we did. That's why I think it was just like, no, you were just like, no, I'm good. And it's like, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did not feel bad about that when you were talking just now, because I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you didn't like it. Yeah. And I think the thing with Donnie, like, it was almost just like happenstance. Like, I just went over on a random Halloween. He was like, hey, do you want to pass out candy with me? And it was just us two. It was real cool. Like, hangout session. Didn't have the third wheel. And then, we just started watching that. And I think a couple of his other friends showed up or something. I bailed shortly after.
Naturally.
But yeah, it was good.
Yeah. But you guys used to get together, and for anybody that doesn't know, Donnie is the third member of the band that Bryce and I used to be in. And the two of you got together pretty regularly for a long time to watch The Walking Dead as the new episodes would come out. And that was, I remember, a thing that you were both really into. And so I'm assuming you have very pleasant memories with this series over a pretty long period of time.
Yeah, I definitely do. I have it's like a combo of both. Like there was a reason why I stopped watching it. Watching the series, like even without, Donnie being there. Mm-hmm. But like definitely like really enjoyed like watching it when I rewatched the first episode, which I watched not too long ago, and then I rewatched it for this podcast. It definitely brought back some Halloween feelings, specifically because I watched it on Halloween, whatever year that was. 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, good stuff. So, I guess it's probably pretty obvious that we're about to discuss the first episode of The Walking Dead, and that fits into our larger Season 11 initiative of taking all the perspective that we've gained from watching hundreds of horror movies over the last couple of years, and then applying it to things that aren't horror movies but are maybe in the same universe. So this week we did the first episode of The Walking Dead, and as we already established, we had both seen it before. But before I get into the specifics of the episode, I had a couple interesting things that I read about it.
Oh, do tell.
So you might guess there's a lot of information out there about The Walking Dead. But I had no idea how, because, I've never seen more than just the first episode. Like, I'm aware of it from pop culture, but I don't really know a lot about it. So I was reading, and this is just from Wikipedia, but they're saying that there is a spin-off series called Fear the Walking Dead, and that's in its 7th season. There's another spin-off that's 2 seasons called The Walking Dead World Beyond. And then AMC has announced plans for 3 films related to it. And then last year they announced, or gosh, 2 years ago now, they announced two more spinoffs based on characters whose names I don't know the significance of. But that's insane. This show was on for 11 seasons, and it has a spinoff show that has been on for 7 seasons, and they're making more spinoff shows.
Yeah.
Like, that is so uncommon for something to be popular enough to spawn that much over that period of time and to still, like, be popular and relevant.
Yeah, I think it's one of those crazy things, man. Like, it was almost like it was at the right time when this came out.
Yeah.
Like, there's a huge zombie craze, you know, and everyone was talking about zombies, and there was zombie everything out.
Well, do you think this caused it, or do you think this was a part of the result of it?
Honestly, I don't remember exactly. I do remember, like, when it came out, it was only the 6 episodes for the first season, and I think it wasn't that popular at that point, I think, until they put it on, like, Netflix or something. That's how Donnie and I watched it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I mean, thinking back around that time, it would almost have to be the show that caused, like, the craze because of, like, I don't know too many zombie movies that would have done that.
Yeah.
Maybe there were other TV shows out but specifically, like, I do remember, like, it was just, like, crazy time with zombies. Everyone loved them.
Yeah. And this show was definitely, like, at the epicenter of that, I think, for sure. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So another thing I learned about it, I guess it was initially adapted from a comic by a guy named Frank Darabont, who was also the showrunner for the first season and involved with the production and stuff. And then he had a huge falling out with AMC and then brought a lawsuit against them that went on for years and years and years. And then in the end, they ended up settling with him, I think it said for like $200 million. Really? So basically, and future royalty payments.
Jeez.
So this took, it took a long time. It took like 7 years or something to get through it all. But in the end, he got paid. Now, I'm curious how much he owed in legal fees, but still, that's pretty wild. And then I guess also at one point, like later on in the series, there was a stuntman that died during filming, and his family sued AMC, and they ended up like settling with him outside of court for like $9 million. So it's weird to me that in the midst of all this popularity and all these spinoffs and everything going on with it, there was like all this legal stuff going on behind the scenes, but the series still seems to be doing fine. Like, if you can pay $210 million and still like come out ahead, dang, this thing must be a cash cow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. It's also kind of crazy to me. Like, stunt work is definitely not dangerous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just weird to me that you could get a job that's dangerous that could potentially, like, mess you up or kill you. And then you could sue the network. More power to them, though. Yeah. That's legit. I do think, though, that the comic book was... I think the guy that you were talking about was, like, developed a TV show based off of the comic book, if that's what you're talking about. But the writers were two guys, or one guy writer named Robert Kirkman, and then artist for it was Tony Moore.
Oh.
So the guy who you're talking about, though, was, like, executive producer, developed the show, executive producer. I think he was from, like... He wasn't from the United States, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I see. So it probably means that he had done the initial adaptation from the comic as something else, then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And he was... You know what's... The really crazy thing, I feel like, about that whole thing is he technically only... For 1.5 seasons, the guy who you're talking about, the Frank Darabont?
Yes.
1.5 seasons, he made that much money. off a lawsuit. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like, starting off, he couldn't think it was that famous. Like, it wasn't that famous at this point when he stopped with the show halfway through the second season. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's... I wonder how often that happens where you just, like, stick with the lawsuit and it just gets more valuable.
Yeah.
But...
My luck would be the exact opposite. I'd end up owing them even more money.
Yeah, I wouldn't make enough to cover.
Yeah. They were like, all right, you're going to go back and you got to work for free. It's like, oh, shit.
They're going to be like, you know what? You owe them money just because we're tired of talking about it.
Yeah. And guess
That'd
what? Our new offices are in South Dakota.
Oh, God. Couldn't imagine.
Nah.
Disgusting.
I'd quit. I would just move.
I would let a zombie bite me.
Yeah.
But anyway. So yeah, I remembered very little of the first episode because it's been many, many years since I watched it. Mm-hmm. And there were a few scenes that kind of came back to me as we were going through, but it was interesting to come back to it. And the first thing that stood out was just how low quality the filming was. Like the picture quality was not good. Yeah. And I don't know if this is one of those that was in like that weird time when we were transitioning from like the standard format to the widescreen or whatever. But I mean, it was rough. Did you have the same experience, or did I just have like a bad connection or something?
No, I mean, it wasn't the greatest. My thought about that was I don't know how much they were able to put into it, considering they only had 6 episodes for the first season.
Yeah.
Like almost like it was a tester, to see how it would do. So it definitely wasn't the greatest, but I wouldn't say it was the worst either. Like I watched current shows even worse, but I have like this weird thing with new high def shows. Like I can't watch them because it feels like I'm watching a reality TV show. Mm. And so like I almost like want to go back to like the box TVs.
Yeah.
So I actually probably felt pretty good about it.
Mine was real pixelated, so maybe it was just something with my internet connection, but it was real rough. So yeah. Kind of on the topic of like how it was made, I was a little let down by the intro sequence because it was mostly just shots of like the abandoned cityscapes. And like I get it, and that's very appropriate for the show, but it was just so much less intense than the American Horror Story credit sequence that I was just like, oh, is that all? This is soft.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our... I don't know if that was for the better or worse, doing American Horror Story first. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say, for the show, I enjoyed the first season a lot when watching it. So, like, I was kind of just, like, right at home. Yeah. But it was definitely not the... I think the thing that people have to remember or think about with like The Walking Dead, I don't remember what season it was. It was like probably like halfway through, and I'm reading up on the show, and it's talking like the humans in the TV show have killed more humans than zombies.
Yeah,
and up to like a certain point or something like that. Like the amount was like there was a lot more human kills than zombies, and that's kind of like what I feel like the definition of the show is. It's almost seems a little bit more dramatic at times. It's more about how you survive in a zombie apocalypse, or like survive within a zombie apocalypse, not how do you survive a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. It's like the inner dealings of a community, and so this one didn't have as much as it does in the later seasons, so I was just like, I was at home. Like, I was in heaven. Yeah. The first season of The Walking Dead, first couple seasons, I can definitely watch, watch over and over. But it's like, once it gets to a certain season, I'm just like, I'm out. I've done it. I get it.
Question for you. Did you feel like the people who made this movie were fans of 28 Days Later?
I mean, I don't know why you would come up with that idea at all. It can't be from the hospital or like the long shots of him walking across the bridge or all the dead bodies.
Or the fact that the first people he stumbles across is a father-child combo who has been surviving on their own and now joins forces with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you got that idea.
Yeah. Right.
And then they did slow zombies too, you know? And it's like, wait, that doesn't save you from copying some ideas here. But, hey, if you're going to copy, you might as well copy from the best.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. No, it was definitely like a positive connotation, but I was just like I don't know, first 8 lines in my notes or something all start off with just like 28 days later, comma.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I wish it was 28 days later.
Yeah. But I liked that. That was actually a kind of a positive for me because I thought 28 days later created a universe that was very, compelling. And so, starting with something similar, not a bad move. But yeah, it kind of has that typical, like, person wakes up post-zombie apocalypse and has to figure out what's going on. And it was funny because when he meets up with the father-son survivor team, which it was Dwayne and his dad. I never caught his dad's name, which I probably could have looked up now that I talk about it, but in my notes I didn't have it. Mm-hmm. But it was really funny to me because the dad, like, basically explains the rules to him. And it's always... I find it so amusing that in zombie movies, they act like the idea of zombies in popular culture don't exist.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't he just say, like, oh, hell, you don't realize we're in a zombie apocalypse, just like Night of the Living Dead, or like anything else. He's like, no, it's the same rules. Yeah. Like, seems like they could have saved a lot of dialogue, but
they'd say, like, you mean like 28 days later? And they're like, no, we can't talk about that.
Shh. They'll sue us too.
They're listening.
Yeah. But, so it was a pretty typical setup, I guess. But there was also a fair amount of stuff in here that I thought was pretty compelling, like the zombie mom sort of stalking the house and turning the doorknob trying to get in.
Yeah.
That was dark.
That was heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, super, super heartbreaking. I think his name was Morgan, by the way.
Okay.
Morgan Jones. I feel like also about the show, I don't know if I think becoming a dad is making me soft, dude.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because, like, that was, like, legit super sad for me.
Yeah.
But also, like, I would just make my son do it.
Do what?
Take his mom out.
Oh, shoot him?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So...
I mean, only if she was a zombie.
I specifically remember that is the part where I lost interest.
Yeah.
The last time I tried to start this. So there's like the scene where it's going back and forth between Rick getting his cop gear back and going to the park. And then like Morgan is wasting a bunch of ammo or loading up a bunch of ammo to shoot from the roof. And Rick is like apologizing to the zombie with no legs and then shoots her in the head. And then Morgan is like wanting to kill a zombified wife. And there's just like a lot of really boring ambient drama music and crying. Mm-hmm. And that lasted a really long time. And it's like, I don't know these characters yet. Like, I don't even know who's a good guy or who's a bad guy or who I'm supposed to be cheering for or like, like maybe Morgan just shut the door on his wife when she was trying to get in and it's his fault she's out there in the first place. I don't know. I don't feel anything for these people. So that part was a little slow for me. And I feel like kind of the big difference I see between this and American Horror Story is that American Horror Story was trying to confuse you and throw you off the whole time. Mm-hmm. Whereas this one I feel like was just very upfront about what it was and kind of what you could expect. And to your earlier point, I mean, this is very much in sort of the classic zombie tradition.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mostly human drama in the setting of a zombie apocalypse.
Right.
And so it's not as much of like a mystery to it. It's a lot of like, will Rick find his family? Will Dwayne and his dad survive and all that? But on the horror front, you know exactly what you're getting into.
Right. And I wonder if that has, like, kind of go into the genres. I wonder if that has something to do with zombie films over, everything else.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
When you get slow zombies, that's when you can have more of a dramatic movie or TV show because they're slow and you can just outrun them, if we're being honest. It's the quantity, I guess, of slow zombies that make it terrifying. And it's also kind of showing like we're the real bad guys here, or whatever stupid thing people want to say. But when you have like,
which is also a very 28 Days Later message, right?
100%. Yeah. Oh no, I think that was more like military's bad. I'm just kidding.
Them too.
Yeah, it's all the above. I guess they're humans too.
Yeah.
But when you come to like American Horror Story, like especially what they were trying to create, like I do think this was absolutely created by horror fans. Without a doubt. But there is even less of a doubt that American Horror Story was made by horror movie fans, or at least people who set out to make a horror and were like, we're gonna do it, and there's definitely stuff that's added to the episodes in American Horror Story for drama. Same for this. But it's almost like it wasn't as much of a focus.
I feel like they're just in really different genres though. Like the genre tradition of zombies, this totally fits. But with American Horror Story, I still feel like it kind of spanned genres a little bit, which made it a little bit less predictable and added more suspense and mystery to it.
Right.
And so just from I am not yet invested in any of these characters. I'm going to donate, 45 minutes to an hour of my time to see how this affects me. I feel like that's a little more grabbing. But I feel like with this one, like you said, the idea of like the slow zombies lets you develop other themes and stuff, which I think is like what you typically see in zombie movies. Like thinking of like Land of the Dead, for example, where it's like, oh yeah, like the zombies are just kind of part of the background of what's going on here. But, but I don't, to be completely honest, I don't think I finished this episode the first time I tried to watch it. 'Cause the scene where he was in the city on the horse and he like sees the helicopter and he rides off to try and get a better view and then comes around the corner and the whole street's full of zombies and then they all just start swarming him from every direction. That shocked me. I wasn't expecting that. And after things had been kind of so slow and mellow, leading up to that, I thought that was really effective and intense and was by far the best part of the episode.
Yeah. I do want to also say, I even feel like with Night of the Living Dead, it was more about the drama of what's going on inside the house.
Oh, sorry. I meant Land of the Dead.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about zombies. I want to go back to what I was kind of saying real quick.
Okay.
I think I just wasn't thinking of like Night of the Living Dead. Like that is like a common zombie theme where it's how are the people dealing with it.
Oh, for sure.
And so that's my bad where I'm getting at. I apologize. Okay. So very intense scene. I really like it because it's almost like a Western in a way. Like he knows he's going into a city that's,
that's actually a good point. The idea of like the outsider rolling into town.
Yeah. And so it's like, exactly. And so it's like, almost, a little pumped. You're like, oh man, he's in for it. And definitely inexperienced at that point. Like that's what I feel like they were trying to show off. Our show was like, he's definitely inexperienced. And then the problem I not struggle with, but like if I was watching this for the first time, like, and they were to cut it off, like when the show ended, the first episode ended, I would have just been like pretty livid, just stuck in, like I get why they do it to try to bring people back, but it's like they could have done it as soon as like he got out and realized like, oh, there's even more people or something. Yeah. It just kind of bothered me, but the intensity of him going into it just from the start of like horseback into Atlanta, I think that's where they're at.
Yes.
Then, running into all the zombies. It's just, it was super, super intense. Also, like, super dumb. Why would you go to a big city?
Because he was trying to find his family. No, that was actually the part of the plot that made the least sense to me. Because he's like, I gotta find my family, so I'm gonna go to Atlanta. It's like, well, Atlanta's a big place, bud. Like
a lot. There's a lot of territory there, Rick.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think the question I have for you though is how long would you search for your wife if you woke up like that? I just count my losses.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. I've always thought I'd just go try and find a cruise ship.
Ooh, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Because they've got, their own power generation and enough food to feed several thousand people for an extended period of time and all that. It seems like that'd be a good spot if you could figure out how to get to one. But I guess if you're all the way up in Georgia, the closest one's probably, somewhere in Florida, and it's a long ride, buddy.
Florida's terrible, even, not in a zombie apocalypse.
Well, not as bad as South Dakota, but
that's
okay.
for damn sure. Yeah, but that's comparing apples and oranges. Everyone knows that. Yeah, I would just count my losses, I think, just immediately. And then, you know what would happen? Maybe 10 years down the road, she'd be like, so I've literally been at our house this whole time. And you're with Daniel?
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, you got me on that one.
But it was interesting, just the last thing I had in my notes, the gore level, I feel like was stepped up a large notch from anything else on cable at the time. And I think that that's something very notable about this show, is like that even holds up today, is pretty intense. Like when all the zombies were eating the horse and stuff towards the end. And that's one thing that I think is very like attention grabbing, and a thing that makes it feel a lot more real. Like the fact that they didn't skimp out on that makes the whole thing feel a lot more intense. So by ending on that scene of, him just barely getting away from that swarm and like hearing the radio, and then you see like the just complete like disgusting like gore of what can happen if the zombies catch you, was a really compelling way to set up the series.
Yeah, it definitely did that. I just wish that Rick found out what happened with his wife, that's all. And Coral.
Bunked up with his partner.
Oh, man. I know.
Story as old as time itself.
Mm-hmm. It's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah. Yep. But anyway, I'm glad we came back to this. Like I said, I feel like this is very, very much in the zombie tradition, and it's interesting to see that adapted to a TV show instead of a movie, because I do think that a lot of the intensity and stuff is gonna, at least my prediction of how the series would go, and you may contradict me, because you're like that, is that building your knowledge of and history with in relation to the characters adds a lot of suspense to the situations that they end up in. And so watching them sort of navigate this post-zombie apocalyptic world has that very like low-key level of stress in the background all the time that then gets like escalated over and de-escalated over the course of the episode. It's almost like an intensity journey more so than a what's going on here, what's happening now. It's like the way that it's messing with you psychologically is very, very different than the way American Horror Story tried to.
Yeah, I get that. It's definitely like two totally different shows. I don't think that they were like queuing off of each other. So it's like, I like that. It's cool that we live in a time where we can have shows like this on network television with the blood and guts and gore. I just think that's interesting. I'm against censorship.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's just awesome. And for people, I mean, putting out Walking Dead and American Horror Story, like they're putting out horror shows, Yeah. You can't be too upset about that. At least it's not Bly Manor. Jeez.
It could always be worse.
I don't know. Did you hear that Bly Manor is actually based in South Dakota?
I believe it. 100%.
That's why they talk funny.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I'm dumb. You know what we should do immediately if there's ever a zombie apocalypse?
What?
Go to Australia, because nothing bad ever happens there.
I heard that. You know what I'd really do in a zombie apocalypse? I would just get like the chainmail that divers use. It can prevent a shark bite.
Yeah. No, that's a good call.
Yeah. And that would take out like people I don't like. Nothing.
You'd use it as an excuse to clean house.
Yeah. Rose will be like, hey, no. And it's like, no, you're a zombie for sure. You've been bit.
Yeah.
Yes, because you're going around biting people.
Yep.
Guilty. Overall, though, man, I definitely enjoy the show. I continue watching more on, too. I got to episode 3.
Yeah, I'm thinking I may have to go back now and at least give the first season a shot.
Yeah, I would definitely do
it. And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.